morning, YouTube. Welcome to the Mount Baldy road, which leads to the famous Glendora Road mountain pass. This is a canyon road that I always personally take my new cars to and kind of feel out how they drive, or sometimes just to get some stress out. My go-to canyon run is right here. If I was gonna do some driving impression, might as well give you guys some footage of one of my favorite roads out here. The steering in soft, in my opinion, is the best setting for this car. Anything sport or track, the steering gets way too heavy, artificially heavy, and I am pro light steering, and it also feels like it gives me more feedback when I have it in comfort. So that's how I like to do it. When you get in the car and start to drive this car 8/10, 9/10 of its capability, the car feels right at home. It really hides its 3,800 pound weight very well. You know, the car doesn't have any of those nonsense variable steering or any of those sport throttle response mappings where they artificially make your throttle response super quick. You know, it doesn't have any of that. Oh, a little bit of if you guys were able to hear that as well as I did, but that's pretty much one of the biggest reason I love this car. The noise, the engine. So right at about 3,800 RPM, it just picks up and goes. It almost have this VTEC type of engagement, for lack of you know, better words. You know, under 3,800 RPM, it doesn't have a whole lot going on, but once it hits that, you know, the torque bend almost changes up, and it really revs happy all the way out to 8,250, and it pulls and pulls. Higher you go up in the rev range, it pulls harder and harder. Very linear. Pretty much I got zero complaints for this powertrain that this car have. Everything that you touch that you need to use to drive and get the best driving sensation, this car is there to give it to you. The steering, start from that again. The feedback, to me it's great. You know, it's got the McPherson strut up front with the double ball bearing lower arms, and it gives plenty of a feedback to you. A little bit of the vibration, the little undulations that you hit on the surface. I do feel that through my fingertips. And the shifter, every shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, each gate is perfect. I've never made misshifts on this car. The amount of throw is perfectly short, not too short, not too long. You feel that nice click into each gear. You know, it's like you know, like a lot of car reviewers like to say, you know, it's got that bolt action rifle type of feel to it when you make those shifts. It's fantastic. Throttle, gas pedal, again, doesn't matter what mode you're in, it gives you very linear response, meaning from fully depressed to completely undepressed, you have a, you know, each increment of pressure that you apply to gas pedal, you get just about that much more acceleration, and this is the way to the Glendora. So where was I? Yes, so throttle, yes, very linear, coming out of the corner, nothing surprises you. Again, car does what you ask for it to do. Unless you do something stupid, car's not gonna do something stupid, and that's the best part about this car. The braking, the brake pedal, just, again, the best brakes that I've had in any of my cars in the past. Great pressure, the pedals never give up, the fluids, brake pads, calipers, everything holds up, nothing overheats. Again, going back to the brakes, same thing as the throttle. You know, the more power you apply to the brake pedal, you know, it gets a firm grip on it, and you can easily modulate how much brake pressure you want without locking up your wheels. ABS doesn't kick in any, you know, it's not too aggressive. I personally haven't had a whole lot of ABS kicking in, even at the track. That kind of tells you, you know, these tires and these brake pads do their job pretty well for what it is. And I'm sure if I put even stickier tires without changing my pads to, you know, racing compounds, I don't think I'm going to be locking up these wheels anytime too soon. So that's another great part about it. Again, gas, brake, shifter, steering, chassis. Let's talk about that. The amount of the talking that your car does through your hips, through your seats, is also amazing. You can literally, as soon as you feel the rear end slide or your front starts to give up into understeer, you know, you get all of that feeling. Even if I had numb steering, I will immediately notice that just from the chassis balance and how much it talks to you through your butt and your hips. It's a very gradual rotation. You know, whatever the car does, nothing again is by surprise. Does everything very well without, again, making things, it just makes everything easy for novice drivers like me. This car is, I would say, one of the easier cars to drive, especially cars that have more than 500 horsepower. You know, if I could change one thing out of everything that I have to use as I drive, is the clutch pedal. The way it depresses and comes up, you know, from what I've heard, it has 2 helper springs, and each spring has different rates, which I'm not sure why they did it. Maybe to help you know, make the clutch feel lighter than it needs to be. But the clutch in this car is very light. Is even lighter than you know, regular Mustang GTs. But because it has 2 helper springs that are different sizes, it along the travel way, you know, it feels a little different, and the engagement point is very up high towards to you. Travel is fairly long as well, the clutch pedal, and you know, I think it definitely could have been better. But I mean, first couple hundred miles of driving, yeah, I had to learn a little bit more about it. But you know, at this point, after a couple thousand miles, you won't have any problems with it. I mean, the pedal spacement, you know, for heel toe is perfect. You know, it's very easy for any type of spirited driving, track driving. I mean, everything's pretty much right there where you want it to be. There's nothing that's very quirky or weird that you have to relearn. So that was a nice surprise. Car in the mid corner, when you come out of the corner, as you apply throttle, the suspension has been set up so that you always gain more traction as you apply more throttle. And because the engine won't give you any burst of torque like, you know, if like a turbocharged cars or supercharged cars, you know, it's very nice sensation when you know, during the mid corner, especially high-speed cornering in those large tracks. You know, you apply more throttle and the car just gives you more and more grip. It's to the point where you feel like, you know, it's okay, the car's gonna start to step out, but it just doesn't. As the car goes around the corner faster and faster, you just feel more grip on it, and it's partially scary but partially fun, and partially exciting, all of that all together. And of course, if you mash the throttle, the rear end would break loose. I mean, don't get me wrong, the car does have, you know, over 500 horsepower there, so it will do that. But you know, there's a lot of sealing, especially as aero starts to do their work, and like I said, more of that weight starts to shift to those rear wheels. You know, it's great. You just got to make sure, you know, you have some driving knowledge. Probably one of the most common mistakes a lot of people tend to make. You know, they start to feel the rear slide and they get scared and just let go of everything, and the worst case scenario, start pressing on that brake, and that's it. That's how you spin out. Something that I also noticed on this regular GT350 instead of the R is it hides the weight, like I said, very well, driving 8/10, maybe even up to 9/10. But when you really push the car to the limit at the track, the front heaviness, it shows up quite well. And biggest reason, most likely from what I've looked into, is this car, the spring rate and the Magna-Ride setting for the front is much softer than the R. And I realized Ford did that just to probably give you a little bit more comfort on the daily driving situations, and I give them 100% props to that, because this car, as a daily driver, it really works very well. You know, doesn't beat on you. You know, the Magna-Ride dampers are really a magic dampers. But again, when you push this car to the limit, what happens? The front end starts to float a little bit. It almost feels like it bounces. Maybe one little bounce too much than necessary. Meaning, you know, for example, during mid-corner, if there's a little bump, the car will hit the bump, and instead of soaking it up in one travel, it bounces around maybe once or twice more, and that translates to the driver a bit of discomfort. It feels a little scary. It feels like your front end is losing grip, or it just doesn't know, it's wandering around a bit. It doesn't feel that precise at that moment. And after that bounce, it will settle in. You know, it's not like it will do something crazy because of it. So I mean, you do get used to that. Just trust the car that it will settle down, and just keep going with it, and it's fine. But you know, it does give you a little bit of how should I say it, as far as driving pleasure, it does, you know, I'll have to knock some points off of there. And also the rear sway bar on this car compared to the R, it's, I believe, about 0.7 millimeters thinner, and it's a little bit longer. and that all translates to pretty much a car that would not rotate as readily. And again, it is set up as mild understeer when you drive quick, and I personally like mild understeer. It gives me a little bit more safety net to play with. But you know, again, for someone who really is track savvy or track red, you know, I'm sure you guys want to make that rotation. One of the first couple things I like to do on this car are those change the front springs to the R springs and the rear sway bars to the R sway bars, and I think this is where we're gonna make a little turnaround. I do have to go back home before my son wakes up, guys, otherwise I don't know how many of you guys are married, but you wanna keep your wife happy, your life is happy. So time to go back home here. The Ford Performance actually recommends you know, 1.75 degrees negative camber on the front for the R and 1.6 I believe for the regular GT350, but as a stock suspension you actually can't adjust camber because all the bolts whatnot up in the front suspension have absolutely no play. And about -1, 1.1, 1.2 is the maximum camber you're gonna get out of it, unless you get some camber plates on there. So you don't need a whole lot of camber on this car, just because the suspension geometry, as the wheels compress, I believe the cambers, you get more added camber in there. So but again, that's another thing. And I do have a couple parts on order, and when they do come in, and before I go to get them installed, yeah, I'm gonna do another video on that, and before and after type of driving impression that's coming. Another thing I want to talk to you guys is the weight of this car. I know that's probably one of the biggest drawback on the car, and this somewhat of an old chassis that doesn't utilize much aluminum. And what Ford did to hide the weight is use all these expensive parts, things like Magnaride and 305 tires up in the front for the R, 6-piston brakes, huge rotors, you know, all these heavy-duty parts to cope with the weight of this car. And again, to me, I just don't understand why they couldn't. Well, I'm sure probably because it takes a lot more money to develop a new chassis, but in a long run, you know, I mean, you develop a great modern chassis for cars like a Mustang, which really do represent a company Ford. You know, most people, hey, what car do you know most that come out from Ford? And you know, I'm sure 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 people will say Mustang. You know, and you can utilize the chassis for a lot of the other cars in their lineup. And you know, if they simply use some, you know, super high strength steel and aluminum and some carbon fiber into the bodywork, like most of the other companies are doing nowadays, and you know, drop the weight from 37,800 to maybe about 3,600 pounds. I think that's where it's going to be a magic. You know, then, you know, you don't have to put this huge thick tires on it, and maintenance becomes cheaper, and you know, the car wouldn't you know, need all these heavy-duty coolers and big old brakes. And you know, when you do have these big old brakes, they won't have to work as hard, and the endurance of them will increase. Everything gets better as things get lighter. And I've saw a video where one guy, one company that does carbon bodyworks, they literally replaced all of the body panels to carbon fiber on GT350, and from what they said, I believe they came out in Jay Leno's garage, and they're able to save, you know, I believe it was some crazy amount, 400 pounds plus of weight, somewhere around that neighborhood. And you know, I could only imagine how that car drives. You know, maybe it's for me to work on the car as a project. You know, another thing, just try to lighten up the front end as much as I can and enjoy along the way. That's another part of you know, making the car your car. So we'll see how that goes in the future. Yeah guys, so I mean, I think that's that really sums up most of what I've been feeling as far as driving this car. Again, I plan on taking this car to many more track events as much as I can. I think that's you know, you have cars like these, that's where they're meant to be driven. As long as you do proper maintenance, you know, do regular oil changes, filters, and make sure all your fluids are good. You know, I mean, the car's built to handle what it needs to handle. And you know, again, if you guys want to keep seeing me at the track or whatever, please subscribe. I'll try to upload the videos hopefully about once a week. You know, I do have to take care of my family and my job, so I'll try to do as much as I can. And you know, I do enjoy driving. I do enjoy doing I'm just learning how to do a video editing, and you know, it's starting to you know, it's become part of my hobby type of thing. And you know, I just do this just because I love it. I love to do it. So again, feel free to leave me comments if you guys have any questions. But yeah, those of you who are contemplating of purchasing cars like these, you know, versus, you know, more of a, you know, cars like, you know, the big three, the M3, you know, the RS4, C63, you know, those type of cars. I would say to you, if you've been in that kind of same circle of, you know, safe bet, you know, German cars, the Japanese cars, the sports cars in the past, you know, the new muscle car game these days is whole another ballpark. You know, I mean, the cars like the Camaro, the ZL1 1LE, and you know, 350, 350R, you know, even the Hellcats wide body ones, especially the ones that just came out. You know, they have so much character and something that you know, these big three German companies or any other companies are willing to do nowadays. It's almost flashback to, you know, 90s the JDM market, where they're pumping out, you know, NSX, Supras, GTRs, R34, you know, those type of cars that are still considered, you know, sought after halo cars. Even nowadays, in another 10-15 years, people are gonna look back and say, you know, wow, that was the golden age for these cars. And you know, if I were you, I wouldn't miss out on the opportunity. You know, they definitely give you more character, more thrills, in my opinion. You know, I mean, they might not have that refinement. I'm gonna give you that. You know, it's that they're gonna have their quirks. You know, there are downsides to buying these cars, because you know, you have to realize companies that are putting this one-off engines that are, you know, in Hellcat's case, you know, 700 plus horsepower and drivetrain that can match and handle that, all the cooling. You know, in GT350 case, same thing. You know, again, the engine just built for GT350, GT350R, hand built. You know, racing transmission. You know, things that matter. They're spending a lot of money into it for its development. and they have to chip out somewhere if they want to keep these prices into an affordable range. You know, and I understand that completely. That's why, you know, I love this car to death. Even though some of the quirks that I shown you guys in the interior exterior review, you know, I mean, I think it's still one of the best cars I've owned to date. But yeah, again, you know, if you are contemplating, or hey, if you live in Southern California near Inland Empire area, and you wanna see how the car, you know, get a passenger ride and see how the car is, you know, let me know. You know, when I do go for track days and stuff like that or whatnot, you know, I'll let you know, and you can always come out and get a ride along, and I'm all for that. But again, you'll be surprised, and you'll be smiling most of the time too. I can guarantee you that. Again, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Again, if you want to follow me, please subscribe, and I will see you guys in a week or two. Hopefully I'll update you with what's happening to this car or what I'm going to be doing in the future. Well, you guys have a great weekend. Take care.